That evening, the cat sat at the edge of a garden. Not grand or kept, but one of those quiet, slightly overgrown spaces at the back of an old weatherboard house. The fence there was graying and split in places, softened by the slow wear of rain and sun, but still standing. The air carried the gentle hush of the bush beyond, the distant murmur of magpies settling into the last light, and the soft rasp of dry leaves against each other. The cat's coat was the color of dusk itself, a mottled gray that almost blended with the old boards and shadows. Its eyes, though, held a faint glimmer, like the last light still clinging to the day. It wasn't waiting for anything in particular, at least not anything it expected to find, but something in the way it kept its body low to the ground, paws tucked in just so, suggested a silent vigil. A presence that wanted to be unseen but not unfelt. Above, a wattle branch stirred faintly as a breeze whispered through, carrying the faint scent of eucalyptus and dry earth. It was the sort of smell that clung softly to the air at the end of warm days, comforting in its quiet persistence. The cat shifted, just a little, its ears flicking at a distant creak. Perhaps a loose gate, perhaps nothing at all. It didn't matter. The night was beginning to stretch itself over the world, and the cat felt it pressing closer, a soft weight settling on its shoulders. The fence was familiar. It had been part of its world for as long as it could remember, though the days blurred now into each other. There had been voices once, laughter spilling through an open back door, crumbs falling onto dry grass, hands that reached down absently to scratch between its ears. But those days had folded into silence, the house behind the fence empty and still. The back door now hung slightly ajar, not enough to invite, but not fully closed. A half gesture. The cat did not look at it. Instead, it listened to the gentle shuffling of leaves, the soft calls of distant frogs beginning to stir, the tiny creaks of the fence adjusting to the cooling night. The world was not entirely still, though it felt as though it could slip into quiet sleep at any moment. The cat's tail curved around its body, a slow curl of comfort, or maybe habit. A faint movement caught its attention, a flicker of wings above, a night bird gliding silently over the garden. The cat's ears tilted, a soft quiver of recognition. It watched the bird until it vanished into the deeper shadows of the bush beyond, leaving behind only the faintest disturbance in the air. For a moment, the cat's body remained taut, as though it might follow, but then it settled back, pressing itself a little lower into the ground. The night was not cold, but the warmth of the day was fading, leaving a softness in the air that felt almost like a sigh. Somewhere in the distance, a cicada trilled one last note before falling silent. The cat closed its eyes briefly, its sides rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. It did not sleep, not quite, but it allowed itself to rest, to let the weight of the night settle more fully around it. The faint scent of eucalyptus lingered, threading through the air with the whisper of the breeze. The garden felt almost like a memory, something half-remembered and worn smooth by time. The cat's body softened, its ears lowering slightly, and for the first time in many nights, its breathing slowed as if, just for a moment, the world had remembered him. And in the deepening quiet, beneath the soft shush of distant frogs and the barely there rustle of leaves, the cat felt something close to comfort. Not quite connection, not quite companionship, but a presence. A world that, though silent, was not entirely empty. As the sky deepened into a velvety dark, and the faintest stars began to prick at the edges of the horizon, the cat remained still, listening to the quiet sounds of night. The fence stood behind it, the breeze stirring the wattle just above, and the garden pressed close like a half-forgotten memory. There was no need to move yet. The world was wide, but in this small, quiet corner, the cat found a space to rest. The night deepened as the cat remained near the weathered fence, its body a quiet curve against the cooling ground. The air had thickened, carrying with it a denser mix of scents, the dry tang of dust stirred by the evening breeze, the faint sweetness of wattle blossoms nearby, and something older, harder to name. It was not the sharp, living scent of rain, but a subtler, more elusive trace. Something from a long time ago, carried by the air across dry paddocks and bushland. The cat's ears twitched, its eyes flickering open to the soft dark. The garden was still save for the gentle creak of a branch overhead, a subtle music of wood against wood. High above, the moon had begun its slow rise, pale and deliberate, casting faint shadows that softened the edges of the fence and made the cat's form nearly vanish into the ground. For a moment, the cat lifted its head, testing the air. There it was again, that faint scent. Something like dry hay, but tinged with the memory of warmth, of a sunlit afternoon long gone. It stirred something deep within, something just beyond reach. The cat did not try to grasp it. Instead, it let the memory float at the edges of thought, like a faint song barely heard. A possum stirred somewhere nearby, the soft rustle of its movement slipping through the undergrowth, almost inaudible, but enough for the cat's ears to swivel in its direction. There was no urgency, no instinct to chase, only the recognition of presence, a quiet nod to another creature sharing the night. The possum moved on, its soft steps fading into the thickening shadows. The cat lowered its head again, resting its chin on the cool earth. The faint scent lingered, a thread connecting the now to the then, and it allowed itself to drift in the silence. The night was deep but not heavy, filled with the quiet persistence of small sounds, distant frogs, the breath of wind, the subtle shifting of leaves. The cat's breathing slowed, matching the rhythm of these sounds, its body loosening into the ground as though the world were finally offering a place to rest. Somewhere further off, a magpie gave a low, sleepy warble, its voice soft and fragmented. The cat's whiskers twitched faintly at the sound, a trace of recognition. It was the kind of call that usually meant the day was done, the light fading, beyond the hills. But here it was, in the middle of night. A sound misplaced, or perhaps a gentle echo of something the world wanted to remember. The breeze shifted slightly, and with it came another faint thread of scent, eucalyptus, dry earth, and the faint lingering perfume of old roses that grew untended near the back of the house. The cat shifted its body, a slow, deliberate stretch, front paws extending, back arching slightly, then settling again. The movement stirred a small puff of dust from the ground, rising briefly before settling back into stillness. The garden, though quiet, felt alive in its own subtle way. It wasn't the busy hum of day, but a quieter, more reflective presence. A world listening to itself. The cat's body mirrored this stillness, becoming part of the earth and air, its presence neither intrusive nor withdrawn. A faint glow edged the horizon, not sunrise but a kind of nightlight, perhaps from a distant town or the reflection of moonlight on scattered clouds. It lent the garden a soft, muted silver, a light that did not push away the darkness but settled into it. The cat's eyes glimmered faintly in this light, watching without expectation. The scent in the air thickened just slightly, almost imperceptibly. A memory of hands brushing fur, of voices murmuring softly, of quiet laughter carried on warm air. But there was no one now. Only the night and the steady rhythm of the cat's breathing. It was enough. In the stillness, the cat's body relaxed further, its sides rising and falling in a slow, unhurried rhythm. The faint breeze continued to move through the wattle branches, and the garden, though still filled with silence, felt less empty. It was not companionship exactly, but a kind of acceptance. A presence in the absence, a quiet reminder that the world, though vast and often unyielding, could still offer spaces of rest. And so, the cat lay there, beneath the silvering sky, its breathing soft and slow, its body settled into the earth. The scent of eucalyptus and dry grass lingered, the breeze whispered through the trees, and the night, quiet, patient, and vast, held it close. The cat's breathing had settled into the garden's rhythm, the quiet pulse of night wrapping it in soft silence. But a faint disturbance teased at its awareness, a subtle shift in the light that danced along the edge of its vision. Its eyes opened slowly, a thin gleam reflecting the moonlight as it lifted its head, ears tilting forward. There, near the back of the house, the old wooden door that had hung slightly ajar for days, maybe longer, moved just a fraction, enough to catch the moonlight in its weathered grain. It wasn't a sudden swing, just a quiet adjustment, as though the house itself had sighed, as though it were exhaling after holding its breath for too long. The cat's gaze lingered on the door, its posture still low, its body language neither expectant nor dismissive. It did not rise or move forward, but something in its eyes shifted, a hint of curiosity perhaps, or memory. The door had once been a passage, a space where voices echoed and scents of cooking drifted out into the garden. Now it was just an opening to stillness, framed by shadows and moonlight. A magpie stirred nearby, feathers rustling softly in its sleep, and the breeze carried the faintest scent of rain from far off, not here yet, but coming, perhaps by morning. The cat's nose twitched at the trace of moisture in the air, its whiskers brushing faintly against a fallen twig nearby. The ground beneath its paws felt cooler now. The warmth of the day fully fled, leaving a softness that seeped into fur and bone. A sudden flutter, not loud but enough to draw its attention, as a pair of moths danced near the open door, their pale wings catching the faint glow of moonlight. They circled lazily, brushing against the wood, their movements silent but insistent. The cat's eyes followed them for a moment, a quiet recognition of life continuing, even in such delicate forms. The garden itself seemed to lean inward, listening, as though waiting for something to stir within the house. But there was only the sound of distant frogs, their voices a low, continuous hum that filled the air like a comforting blanket. The door shifted again, almost imperceptibly, but still enough to let a thin beam of moonlight fall across the threshold. The cat's body remained still, but its tail flicked once, a slow, deliberate movement that sent a faint stir of dust into the air. It was not a signal of impatience, but a simple acknowledgement of presence, of waiting, of the slow seep of night into the spaces between. The breeze picked up ever so slightly, stirring the wattle branches and bringing with it a sharper trace of the approaching rain. The cat lifted its head a little higher, nostrils flaring softly, then lowered it again, letting its body sink into the earth's cool embrace. It did not move toward the door, but the door's presence now seemed to pull at the edges of the scene, a quiet magnet drawing attention even in stillness. Above, clouds drifted across the moon, softening the light and casting the garden into deeper shadow. The cat's form became almost a silhouette against the ground, its breathing steady, its eyes reflecting just the faintest trace of silver. It was not waiting for anyone, not really. But the door, half open and creaking softly in the breeze, seemed to speak of a world just beyond, a memory lingering in wood and shadow. The moths continued their dance, brushing against the doorframe, before disappearing into the night. The frogs sang on, the breeze whispered through the wattle, and the house remained still, save for the door's gentle movement. And the cat, breathing slow and even, remained anchored to the earth, its presence a quiet witness to the world's subtle shifts. In that quiet, as the night thickened and the air cooled further, the cat allowed itself to soften, its body yielding more fully to the ground. It was not surrender, but acceptance, of the night's embrace, of the door's silent vigil, of the garden's muted life. The world, vast and softly turning, held its breath with the cat, and for a moment, everything felt exactly as it should be. The scent of rain thickened, carried on the breeze with a quiet insistence that pressed against the garden and slipped into the spaces between shadows. The cat's ears, though relaxed, gave the faintest tilt, as if to acknowledge the subtle shift. Its body remained settled against the earth, but there was a pause in its breath, a momentary stillness, as the first drops began to fall. They were light at first, not a storm, not enough to stir panic or rush for shelter, but a soft tapping against the wattle leaves in the dry ground, a scattered rhythm, almost like a whispered conversation between sky and earth. The cat felt the faint coolness of a drop against its fur, a delicate touch that was neither disruptive nor unwelcome. The garden, so still in the hours before, seemed to lean in closer as the rain began. The sound of it brushing against the dry grass, tapping gently on the old tin roof of the house, and pooling softly against the cracked tiles, felt almost like a memory made real. The cat's eyes half closed, not out of sleep but in a gesture of quiet observation, as if letting the rain's presence fold into its own. The door, still half open, gave a faint creak as the wind nudged it slightly, but it did not open further. Its movement felt almost hesitant, as though unsure whether to invite or to simply acknowledge the night. The cat watched it for a moment longer, then turned its gaze away, allowing its focus to drift back to the rain. Above, the clouds thickened, and the moon's light became diffuse, a gentle glow filtering through the overcast sky. It painted the garden in soft silvers and muted grays, blending the cat's fur with the shadows until it seemed more a presence than a shape. The moths were gone now, their brief dance concluded, and the frog's song had deepened, their voices carrying a resonance that felt both grounding and timeless. A faint rustle in the undergrowth, perhaps the possum again, shifting position, or a bandicoot rooting quietly for food. The cat did not turn to look. It recognized the sound, understood the unspoken agreement of night creatures sharing space. Its attention was focused on the delicate rhythm of the rain, its body rising and falling with a breath that matched the gentle cadence. The scent of eucalyptus sharpened with the moisture, blending with the loamy scent of damp earth and the faint, persistent sweetness of the old rosebush near the fence. The combination filled the air with a quiet, grounding richness, a scent that spoke of belonging, of cycles returning, of the land breathing beneath the surface. The cat's tail gave a slow flick, a barely there gesture that sent a soft ripple through the dust now darkened by the rain. It felt the coolness of moisture against its paws, the faintest seep of wetness into the ground, but it did not move. There was no need. The rain was light, a soft layer of sound that draped itself over the night without urgency. The house behind, silent and still, seemed almost to recede into the background, its half-open door now just another shadow among many. The cat's presence felt more connected to the earth and the air than to the structure behind. The rain's touch was impartial. It fell on the cracked tiles and weathered wood just as it did on fur and leaves. A faint breeze stirred again, carrying the rain's scent deeper into the garden. The cat's whiskers twitched, acknowledging the shift, and it shifted its weight just slightly, settling more deeply into the ground's softened surface. Its body became almost indistinguishable from the landscape, a quiet part of the night's texture. The frog's song rose and fell in slow, measured pulses, and the rain continued its gentle descent. The world felt suspended, as though caught between breaths, and the cat, though alone, did not feel abandoned. It was a presence among presences, a quiet thread woven into the night's fabric. As the rain deepened its rhythm, a soft shimmer of light danced across the garden's wet surfaces, moonlight reflecting through the shifting veil of water. The cat watched it, its eyes following the play of light without urgency, its breathing steady and calm. There was no fear in the rain, no threat, only a gentle reminder that the world moved and shifted, that silence could be filled with sound without breaking peace. And so the cat remained, settled into the earth's embrace, the rain softening the air around it, the garden holding its quiet breath as the night unfolded. The rain continued its gentle patter, a soft and steady music that blurred the edges of the night. The cat lay still, its body sunk deep into the cool dampness of the earth, fur dusted with fine droplets. There was a calmness in the weight of the moisture, a feeling not of intrusion, but of quiet acceptance. It was as if the rain had come to close a long-held silence, to soften the sharp edges of absence. But beyond the hush of the rain, a subtle shift stirred at the edge of the sky. It wasn't dawn, not quite. More a thinning of the dark, a pale suggestion of light pressed faintly against the clouds. The moon, hidden now behind a thickening veil, no longer cast its silvery glow. Instead, the air itself seemed to lighten, as though exhaling after holding the night's stillness too long. The cat's ears flicked once, catching the faintest murmur from beyond the garden, perhaps the distant rumble of a truck along a far-off road, or the sigh of wind moving through the taller trees. It did not turn to look, but its whiskers gave a slight tremor, a quiet acknowledgement of the world's gradual waking. A single drop of rain slid down from a wattle branch overhead, falling with delicate precision onto the cat's flank. It startled nothing. The cat barely shifted, save for a slow exhale, as though marking the drop's arrival. Its eyes, half-lidded in the muted dark, reflected the faint change in light. The darkness was still deep, but at its edges, there was a hint of softness, of something less dense than before. A faint chorus of birds, tentative and scattered, began somewhere beyond the fence. It wasn't the full song of dawn, no magpies, calling in bright trills, no raucous cockatoos stirring the air, but a thin, exploratory sound, like someone testing a note in an empty room. The cat listened, its breathing steady, as though the tentative song marked a point of recognition between night and day. The garden itself responded subtly. The wet earth gave off a deeper, richer scent, the rain coaxing the hidden sweetness from soil and leaf. The cracked garden tiles gleamed faintly in the shifting light, their surfaces smoothened by moisture. The air felt cooler now, but with the suggestion of warmth waiting just beyond the horizon. The cat lifted its head slightly, not with urgency, but with the slow, deliberate grace of a creature attuned to quiet changes. Its eyes opened a fraction wider, pale reflections glimmering in the dimness. The half-open door remained as it had been, a quiet presence behind the cat, offering neither invitation nor rejection. Its creak had stilled, the wind now settled into a light, rhythmic breath that barely stirred the wattle leaves. The rain softened, thinning into a mist that blurred the garden's edges, blurring the lines between shadow and form. The cat's fur shimmered faintly with the moisture, blending into the earth, becoming part of the garden's softened palette. It did not rise, but its posture shifted, weight moving slightly forward as though contemplating the world beyond the fence. Somewhere in the distance, a kookaburra gave a soft, broken laugh. Not the full-throated call of midday, but a low, almost private sound, as if sharing a secret with the dawn. The cat's ears twitched again, a faint response to the familiar voice. It did not respond beyond that, but the sound hung in the air like a gentle thread, tying the night's end to the day's beginning. The breeze, still carrying the faint trace of eucalyptus and wet earth, lifted slightly, brushing through the garden with a coolness that stirred the cat's whiskers and made the wattle branches tremble softly. The first light, still faint and scattered, began to show itself along the horizon, not yet strong enough to color the sky, but pressing against the dark with quiet persistence. And in that moment, the cat remained. A quiet silhouette against the softening dark, a presence both part of and apart from the world's gentle waking. Its breathing was slow, unhurried, matching the measured beat of the rain's last drops as they fell onto leaves and earth. There was no rush, no urgency, only the quiet unfolding of night into morning. As the light continued its subtle push against the edges of the sky, the cat's body softened further into the earth, a slow exhale releasing tension from limbs and spine. It was not sleep exactly, but a surrender to the moment, to the quiet persistence of the world's turning. The night, though fading, left behind its traces. The dampness of rain on fur, the memory of soft bird calls, the scent of earth and eucalyptus. And as the rain slowed to a fine mist, and the first light pressed more firmly against the sky, the cat lay still, breathing the quiet in and out, waiting for the day to find its shape. The first light did not arrive with fanfare, but with a gentle persistence, a subtle pressure against the sky's edge that smoothed the dark into grays and softened the garden's shadows. The cat remained where it had been, its body a quiet curve against the earth, its breath slow and steady, as though it had always been part of this gentle transition. The rain had eased to a fine mist, more felt than heard, a light touch against the leaves and fur. The cat's whiskers, damp with tiny droplets, trembled faintly as the breeze shifted, carrying with it the fresh, clean scent of the overnight rain, mixed with the faint sharpness of eucalyptus and wattle. The garden, so still, beneath the moon, now seemed to stretch itself, loosening from the hush of night into the soft exhale of early morning. Above, the clouds remained thick, but their edges thinned enough to let the dawn's light slip through in muted streaks. It was not yet bright. The sky was a soft, dappled gray, with faint hints of pale peach and blue barely brushing the horizon. The cat's eyes opened fully now, pale reflections catching what little light there was. It did not rise, but its body shifted slightly, as though acknowledging the light's gentle nudge. The half-open door behind remained unchanged, its creak silent in the softened air. The cat did not glance back at it this time. There was no expectation now, only presence. A quiet awareness of space and silence, of the door's muted offer, and of the world beyond the garden fence. A magpie called softly, its voice lower and more deliberate than the bright trills of midday. It was not a song for attention, but a quiet statement of existence, as if to say, "I am here," to no one in particular. The cat's ears tilted. In its direction, a slow, almost imperceptible response. There was comfort in the sound, a reminder of the familiar rhythm of the world, where even the smallest voices marked the passing of time. The breeze thickened briefly, bringing with it a sharper scent of damp earth and stirred the wattle branches, sending a small shower of droplets onto the cat's back. It did not flinch or shake them off. Instead, it allowed the water to bead and trickle, tracing cool lines through its fur. The sensation was grounding, a gentle weight that kept it connected to the soil beneath. A faint rustle near the edge of the garden, not loud, not sudden, signaled the quiet movement of a lizard slipping from under a cracked tile, its small body darting briefly into the open before vanishing again. The cat's gaze followed it only for a moment, its body too deeply settled to pursue. There was no urgency, no need for interruption, only the silent acknowledgement of shared space. The light continued to soften and spread, pale rays filtering through the thinning clouds, casting a gentle wash over the garden's muted colors. The cracked tiles gleamed softly, wet with rain, and the damp grass bent under the weight of the overnight moisture. The world felt both awake and asleep, caught in the quiet tension of dawn. The cat's body loosened further, its tail curling more fully around its paws, its breath a slow, steady rhythm that matched the world's quiet cadence. It was not alone, though no one had come. The presence of rain, breeze, birds, and light was enough, a silent companionship that needed no words, no gestures, only shared existence. The first true warmth of dawn, faint as it was, brushed against the garden's edge, not strong enough to dry the wet earth, but enough to tint the air with the promise of day. The cat remained, a quiet silhouette in the soft light, its form neither fully distinct nor entirely hidden. It had no need to move yet, no need to chase or flee. The world, with all its quiet sounds and subtle changes, was enough. As the light strengthened, the sky above shifting to a pale wash of soft blues and warm grays, the cat's eyes narrowed slightly, a reflex against the growing brightness. But it did not rise. Instead, it allowed itself to breathe the moment in. The scent of wet earth and eucalyptus, the touch of cool air, the faint rustle of branches, and the low, steady hum of morning frogs. In that quiet, as the day slowly gathered itself from the remnants of night, the cat felt the world settle into place around it. There was no rush. The light would come, full and sure, but for now, in this softened space between night and day, everything held stillness. And the cat, breathing in slow, even pulses, remained, a witness to the dawn's gentle arrival, a presence stitched into the quiet earth. The sky, once thick with clouds, now lightened further, a pale sweep of gray-blue spreading softly above the garden. The rain had long since settled into a faint mist, the last of it clinging to wattle leaves and trickling down weathered wood. The garden, still hushed, seemed to breathe a little easier, as though the long-held silence of the night had finally begun to loosen its grip. The cat remained where it had been, a low, steady shape against the cool, damp ground. Its fur, now streaked with fine beads of moisture, shimmered faintly in the growing light. It was not the bright shimmer of sun, but the subtle gleam of morning, a quiet brightness that lent softness to everything it touched. The air, still carrying the scent of eucalyptus and damp earth, felt almost warm now, though not with the sharpness of midday. It was the kind of warmth that eased into the skin slowly, unnoticed at first, then missed when it was gone. The cat's breathing matched the slow rhythm of the breeze, a quiet in and out that made its body rise and fall as if in sleep, though its eyes remained half open, pale and reflective in the muted light. The door behind, half open for so long, did not shift further. The house remained silent, its edges softened by the moisture in the air, its worn boards holding the memory of footsteps, voices, and laughter long since quiet. The cat did not glance. Back now. There was nothing to wait for, no sound to anticipate. Only the presence of the door. A quiet acknowledgement of what had been and what was. A magpie, bolder now in the light, landed on a low branch, its feathers slick with moisture, its call sharper and more deliberate than before. It was a sound that cut through the softness of morning, but not harshly, more like a note of gentle insistence that the day was indeed beginning. The cat's ears flicked once in response, a silent nod, but its body remained still. The light continued to grow, painting the garden in quiet hues of silver and soft green. The cracked tiles beneath the cat, damp and darkened by rain, began to dry in patches where the light touched them. The scent of the wet earth deepened, mixing now with the faint perfume of wattle blossoms and something more distant, perhaps the smoke of a wood fire from a house further down the road. A breeze stirred again, lifting the cat's whiskers and brushing its fur with the faintest touch. It felt the air shift, the subtle coolness of night giving way to the early breath of day. The cat's eyes closed for a moment, not in sleep, but in quiet acceptance, as if absorbing the world's gentle shift around it. The frogs had quieted now, their night song fading into the background, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant hum of waking life. A car passing far off. A dog's bark swallowed by distance, the echo of someone's early footsteps on a wet path. None of it intruded on the garden's peace, but each sound marked the world's gentle turning. The cat shifted its weight slightly, drawing its paws in closer, tail curling tighter around its body. It did not rise, nor did it prepare to leave. There was no need. The garden was enough. The presence of morning light, the softness of the air, the scent of earth and wattle. These were its companions now, quiet witnesses to its existence. And as the morning unfolded, soft and unhurried, the cat remained a quiet part of it all. There was no rush, no dramatic shift, only the quiet acknowledgement of change, the subtle warmth of light against fur, the faint brush of breeze, the low hum of a world beginning to stir. The door behind, still half open, stood as it always had, a silent frame for memories unspoken. The cat did not look back. It did not need to. Its breathing slowed, steady and deep, as if matching the world's quiet exhale. The morning light, growing brighter but never harsh, washed over the garden, softening edges and drawing the cat into its quiet embrace. And in that stillness, in that slow, gentle dawn, the cat's breathing settled into a calm that felt both timeless and immediate, a quiet echo of the world's turning. The garden held its peace, the air soft with moisture and light, and the cat, alone, but not lost, remained, breathing in the morning, resting in the quietness of it all.